like a welcome to Don then.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. Let me know if you can see that.
Yep, it's good, Don.
Yes.
All right. And everyone can hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Like I said earlier, my name is Donald Parizek. I'm a soil scientist here with the NRCS in Tolland. I've been working for NRCS for over 30 years. I've been doing a lot of soils the whole time, doing soil survey work, and just most recently in 2022, was assigned to the project leader position for the coastal zone soil survey for Long Island Sound. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what our work is, what we accomplished in the past year, and what our plans are for the future. Just to show you, this is a shot of the mouth of the Connecticut River, looking down the Black Hall River and at some of the salt marshes that we have here. In the estuary of Long Island Sound. Our survey is going to include both the subaqueous areas, submerged, shallow water, subaqueous soils, and also the tidal marshes that are found within Long Island Sound. As part of the project, we had contracted with NOAA to do a topobathy LIDAR flight. And the reason for that is to obtain some highly detailed bathymetry in a rapid way versus, collecting soundings in the field. This is a much more efficient way to gather that information, which will become our base map for the soil survey, in this beneath the water surface. And this data will also be available and posted on a server by NOAA for other uses as well. So it's not just for NRCS soil survey, but it'll be available to the general public for use. And right now, it's in the stages as being contracted, and hopefully the flights will occur at some point this spring. And then, we're hoping to get our data in some product, at some point in this 2023. So it's it's in the works. We haven't seen it yet, and we just didn't have the luxury to wait on this project because it's a congressionally directed project that has a timeline to it. So once we get this data, we'll essentially have to maybe fill in some of the blanks that we missed, and then draw our mapping boundaries below the water surface based on what we get for this topobathy LIDAR. So what's a coastal zone soil survey? Basically it's a it's a survey showing, like I said before, both the tidal marshes, the near shore areas, and the subaqueous soils. And we kind of decided on about a 3 meter depth, which is approximately 9 feet, a little more than 9 feet below. That's kind of our effective depth that we can, gather our vibracores out on the water, with the equipment that we have. So we would be, gathering data and producing maps, soil interpretations, and, for that area from about 3 meters below the surface to, into the tidal marshes, and then right up against the uplands, that border the coast. The picture here, that's an area that we worked on back in 2017. That's Niantic Bay, Niantic River area, and you can see the soil boundaries extend well into the water, showing the subaqueous environment, as well as, so it's a seamless coverage, extending from the uplands and the tidal marshes into that subaqueous environment. And we like to think of it, as the soil properties and soil formation does not cease to exist at the water's edge. What goes on in the uplands, often continues down into that subaqueous environment, and we'll see evidence for that in many of our cores that we take in those environments. This is what we call a block diagram or topo sequence. It's basically showing a pattern of soils as they fall on the landscape. And we often, think of these as terrestrial, diagrams, but all those, features, they continue on beneath the shallow water environments, and we can map soils based on those subaqueous landforms. And that's where that NOAA topobathy is going to come in very handy. It's going to allow us to delineate those landforms, and we'll have point data showing what soils are found on those landforms, and then we can interpret those and make a decent soil survey based on that. And on the left, you can see some examples. These are from Connecticut and Rhode Island, showing some of the differences that we see in these subaqueous soils, in different environments. We have very silty and clay ones in the low energy environments. We have some that are very coarse and sandy, where you have a lot of current and wave action. You have some areas where there may be submerged tidal marsh, that was, capped with some estuarine silts. We may see areas where we have glacial till, a glacial deposition, and then it was overtopped with more recent marine deposits. So we have a lot of variety soils in our, landscapes of Long Island Sound. So back in March 11th, the president signed the funding for this congressionally directed coastal zone soil survey of Long Island Sound. And it was put forth by our two senators here in Connecticut, Senator Murphy and Senator Blumenthal, and they were able to secure funding and get it approved through the budget process to conduct a coastal zone soil survey of Long Island Sound. So we assembled our crew, and we're able to bring in some of our coastal zone soil survey boats and equipment from all over the United States, bring them up to here to Long Island Sound. We got started basically about a month after the budget was signed. We had to work through some of the equipment issues and bringing in staff, and as the field season progressed, we became quite efficient at gathering these subaqueous vibrocores. You can see them stacked up in the core rack that's on our boat. And it's basically the process is we take, you can see on the far left, that orange object, that's an electric concrete vibrator that is attached by a shackle to the aluminum irrigation tubing. That's vibrated into the subaqueous soil. And what it does, it basically liquefies the subaqueous soil right in contact with that aluminum irrigation piping, and it enables us to penetrate down into the subaqueous environment. And we've retrieved as much as 3 meters of subaqueous soil, so a lot. In some cases, if we don't hit gravel, a lot of gravel or boulders and stones, we can generally get at least 1 meter into those subaqueous soils with that equipment. And then we extract it with usually a chain fall and a winch, and then at the very end, we got to hoist it out and cap it before we lose it out the bottom. So we've gotten quite efficient at this technique. And like I said, we brought in staff. We had well over 40 different people working on this project, from the soil scientists, we had ecologists, we had earth team volunteers, we had student interns, we had students from UCONN. So we had a lot of help, and it made a big difference in the amount of work that we were able to get done during this field season. And you can see, like, the upper row of photos, third one over from the left, that's splitting the core. We use like these shears to split the cores open, and you run some wire or knife down them, and you split them into 2 halves, and that's basically our soil that we use to describe and sample. It's quite a process. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort. And all these, what we do after we split those cores, we do that full description, just as we would on the land, where we would, basically log a test bit. We're logging these soil cores. We're describing them horizon by horizon, taking, physical and chemical properties. We'll do initial soil pH. We'll do conductivity, which gets at, basically the salinity. And then we will, do colors, and we'll bag and tag the samples. And then the samples, we're having 2 labs run our analysis for us. That's the University of Connecticut and also the University of Rhode Island. They're both doing the lab analysis here for the project. And this is pretty much, this is a targeted area. These little points are targeted subaqueous soil locations, and we were able to visit like 368 of them over the course of the field season last year. And I was amazed, because we thought, well, maybe we would do New London County and Middlesex County, and that would probably be the extent of what we could accomplish. But we had such good support from our staff here at NRCS, that we were able to bring in people from all over the US and put them to work, and collecting cores, describing cores. And we were able to get all the way into Fairfield County. And we'll actually be starting the field season back up in May down, and we won't be far from the Norwalk River area, sometime in May, I would predict. So we delivered, 53 cores to UCONN, 56 to URI, and they will be running, chemical, physical analysis for us, as well as we've taken the UCONN Geosciences professor Will Wimet has taken a number of cores to conduct his own research on. So he'll take some of the half cores and some of the duplicate cores that we took to run his own analysis for additional research projects that he has ongoing. But we were very, very pleased with the amount of work that was accomplished this past field season. Some of the key things that I kind of picked up on, and this by far is my whole career has been the largest project with the most moving parts, of any project that I've been involved with throughout my career. So it's been a challenge at times, but a very, very good, learning experience here. And some of the key aspects are like planning. We do a lot of planning, especially in the winter time, to get ready for the field season. And that pays, huge dividends, being able to, count on people and boats and equipment. There's a lot of logistics involved in this type of soil survey, which is definitely not common. It's gone are the days of the soil scientists wandered the landscape with a map board, a spade and auger, and basically by themselves. This is a real team effort. So like I said before, we had over 40 people working on this project this year. So I was amazed at what we got for help, and very, very high quality staff that came in to assist on this project. Safety is a number one priority out there, and we're always on the watch, because we're working in boats. We're working with heavy equipment that's often over our heads, and we really have to watch out, and things can go wrong, and we got to be trained for it, ready for it, basically be on the lookout, so everybody really is trained to basically conduct this type of work in a safe manner. As well as we've had people trained in motorboat operation certification course that's run by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So all of our boat captains are required to take that training, as well as many of them will have the Connecticut boating certification. But this Fish and Wildlife course goes well above and beyond that, because it has a full hands-on component. It's a week-long course with both classroom and practical portions to it. Also, we've been part of the National Cooperative Soil Survey. We have procedures for quality control and quality assurance. So we had a field review back in the fall of 2022, last fall, where we had staff from the Connecticut NRCS, the Special Projects Office here in Tolland, Special Projects Office in Raleigh, North Carolina, and University of Rhode Island, University of Connecticut, all participated in that. We reviewed our data collection procedures, our NASAS database, which is our National Soils Information System. It's basically where we house all of our soil survey information and make it available for the soil surveys, for research, and to produce our interpretations. We looked at taxonomy, which is basically the classification of soils, very similar to what you would see in a plant classification. We have a soil taxonomy system. We reviewed work plans, our soil survey legend, official series descriptions. So there's a lot that we covered throughout, very comprehensive process to ensure that we have a high quality and product, when it's finally published. We also visited with University of Connecticut and URI labs, reviewed the work plans and the facilities. We're currently, this winter working on some spatial edits. We're doing a lot of the work on the shoreline, above the water line, where we have, high quality land-based LiDAR. We have a lot of great aerial photography that we access through like CT Eco, and we're able to make some, edits to the line work, putting the marshes where they belong. And, sometimes we'll see areas where some erosion is taking place. We're able to update the lines there and basically, make the survey much more accurate, than it was originally in that coastal zone. We're going to update our official series descriptions. We have, the 13th edition to the keys to soil taxonomy, which will, basically, bring that into a more of a modern standard. And we will be, developing some new soil series that we've identified already in Long Island Sound. And we're going to be, you'll be seeing those eventually get posted, on our USDA pages at some point. Here's the crew visiting with Professor Will we met. He's a geosciences professor. He does a lot of vibrocoring. His lab is going to be doing the Connecticut lab analysis. And we have Professor Mark Stolt, who's a soils professor over there, will be doing University of Rhode Island work. And he has a number of grad students and lab staff to do that work. Like I said, it was back in December. We finally wrapped up gathering, or splitting all the cores that we stacked up in our refrigerated cooler. We have two mobile refrigerated coolers that we keep the soils in, the samples, and that's to prevent oxidation of sulfide. So we store them in a down at about 33 degrees in those storage units, and then we split them open and describe them and sample them and then put them in bags, and either they go in the freezer or back into the cooler. Our plans for 2023, we're going to finish the PET-ON data entry. That's the soil cores. And we're pretty much almost done with that. I've got a few people still working on some of those, but we're going to have those done. We're actively planning for the field season in 2023, and we're going to have a lot of tidal marsh work. Last year, we focused exclusively on the subaqueous environment. This year, we're going to be doing both subaqueous and tidal marsh. And then we have some very, very shallow areas that we're unable to get our boats into. But we have a John boat, flat bottom skiff with a vibrocoring capabilities to get into those real shallows. So we're going to put that to actively working on the official series descriptions, spatial edits. We're working on the soil survey legend. We've been conducting a fair amount of outreach activities like I am here today. A couple weeks back, I was at the shellfish commissioners meeting. I've been briefing the leadership of the Soil and Plant Science Division on the progress of the project. We're looking to utilize technology more. We have a side scan sonar unit here that we're going to put to use this field season, and we have the possibility of even picking up a sub bottom profiler, which would enable us to basically it's like a ground penetrating radar unit for subaqueous soil. So we're going to see if we can get a hold of one of those. And the overarching goal, because we're on a kind of a short time frame for this project, is we're going to try and collect all the field data that we can in this coming field season, and then after that we would basically have a year to assemble all the data and then publish it. So what are some of the uses for the subaqueous soil survey? One would be dredging. What type of materials are you likely to find when you're dredging various areas? There's like salt marsh restoration projects. That middle picture there, you can see the blue line. That's basically that's in down in Guilford area, and they're gonna try and restore some of the tidal flooding to the marsh because it seems to be subsiding and not keeping pace with sea level rise. So that's going to be a channel that's going to help to alleviate the potential for flooding near those structures. And then we'll also have some endangered species, that we're seeing along. This is called the yellow thistle, the Cicerium horridum. It's common right at the high tide mark in areas, where you have right at that rack line, and you need, certain, amount of sunlight to reach it. So it can't be a dense forest, but more open areas. That's interesting. So you have shellfish, aquaculture, blue carbon accounting, and climate change resiliency projects that are ongoing. All these are potential uses for the coastal zone soil survey. One thing I like to add here is that photo on the left. That's an oyster shell. It was retrieved from a subaqueous profile up in Great Bay, New Hampshire. And we were working with Professor Ray Grizzle up there. He's an oyster professor. And one of the interesting facts is we actually recovered an oyster shell that was over 4,000 years old. It was 1.5 meters below the subaqueous soil surface. And within that soil core that we found, we had evidence that there was a living oyster reef throughout the whole extent. And, to this day, there is an oyster reef at that very location. So we were able to, use subaqueous soil cores to basically put together a history of what went on at that site. And it was pretty amazing that there was a living oyster reef for that many years at that location. And Professor Grizzle wanted to see, well, what are the soil conditions? What are the water quality conditions? What are the other site conditions that would be conducive to that longevity of an oyster reef? And subaqueous soils is one component of that. And we have the proof was in the soil profile that was a long-lived oyster reef there. So moving on, so this is a little bit more, I guess in your area. This is the Norwalk Harbor These are some of the proposed subaqueous soil coring locations that we have. Granted, the extent of the project area, we try and space them out onto various subaqueous landforms as best we can, capturing the variability between them. And you just wanted to show you what our plans were. Right now, we utilize aerial photography. We'll use NOAA charts. We'll use whatever resource we can to identify these landforms. Granted, we're gonna get that topobathy and then have to probably, fill in some holes here and there, but we're gonna capture the gist of it with these coring locations. And these are some of the marsh transects that we plan to run. You can see the salt marsh map units are kind of in different colors there, and the red marks will represent transects where we would run go across the marsh and take various borings at intervals, so we capture that variability across the marsh. As you can see in this aerial photograph, you can kind of see, there's definitely subaqueous landforms that are visible there, and we plan to target those and with our coring locations. This is my contact information, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them today, or if you don't have them today, you can always contact me through my contact information here, or just search it on the web, the Tolland Soil Survey Office or the NRCS, and you can get a hold of me. Any questions for today, or?
Yeah, Don, I have a question for you. This is Chris.
Yes.
It's kind of two questions actually. So, when you're in the Norwalk area, is there any sort of assistance and support that members from this group could offer to your efforts? And secondarily, is there opportunities for members to come down to the shoreline and see the work you're doing and take a look at the cores that you bring out and bring them up into the shoreline and look at them?
Yes. Yeah, I would say most definitely, we welcome the, Earth Team, volunteers to come and assist with the work, see what we're doing. The other thing is we're always looking for like dock space. We need places to dock the boats. We're gonna need an area to park a refrigerated trailer where we would have access to a 110 plug-in for power to run that. Some place fairly convenient. Perhaps parking boat trailers as well. Ideally if we can keep the boats on a slip or a mooring, it saves us a lot of work, as opposed to launching and retrieving the boats on a daily basis. And we'll be definitely staying down along the shore there somewhere, because with the traffic and all, that's the only efficient way to get work done. But yeah, I guess the answer is yes to both of those. If somebody wants to go on the boat, all we have to do is kind of sign them up as a Earth Team volunteer, and then you're allowed to go on the in the government vehicles or boats or whatever. But for sure.
Yes, Joe.
Yeah, I had a few questions.
Certainly.
Donald, are you going to be doing any heavy metal testing?
So, Dr. Will, we met we'll be testing for heavy metals, using, most likely the PXRF, unit. That's right.
And which metals will he be testing for?
I would, mostly like lead for sure, chromium, the heavier metals, are more appropriate to test for with that type of equipment.
And the reason I ask is historically we've had lead, mercury as a common sediment in our area because of what industries were here previously. Can you test for PFAS and PFOS?
That is something that can be done, and whether it's it's not specified, but it could be added to the research, I guess. But it's something that Professor Ouimet may, typically at soil survey we don't report that in our data, but that's something that a researcher could very well do. And we have, we do have a lot of surplus soil material that could be tested for that if there was somebody that had the time to do that and wanted to do that for research.
Okay, one quick comment for you, Donald. When you do the transect along the salt marsh that is next to the old power plant, take a rope with you. I worked in that area for many years, and over a period of time, I can't tell you how many students I had disappear waist to chest high in the mud.
Okay.
It was no joke.
All right, so we should bring a rope to pull them out, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Nikki, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. I was just wondering, for the samples that you're taking in the harbor, you said that you're going to try and capture various landforms as best as possible. Are the sample locations randomized, or are they very targeted to make sure that you're getting all of the landforms that you're looking for?
Yeah, they are definitely biased samples,
Okay.
based on our observations that we've used in other subaqueous soil surveys. We definitely target landforms, based on what we can see. They're definitely not a random sample by any means.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
Dick Harris?
Yeah, I had a question. Are you testing for pesticides?
We are not, but I mean, that could be something that, a lab, if they were interested, could very well do. We are not doing that right at this time. Is that something that you would recommend?
Yes.
Well, the reason I brought this up is that when they tried to do a dredging project off of Pear Tree Point in Darien, they did 4-foot cores, and the pesticides, all the old favorites were there: DDT, DDE, you name it, aldrin, dieldrin, chloridane. They canceled the dredging project because the idea initially was to take that and put it on a dredge site down on the western end of the sound. They declared that it was unsafe to do that.
Okay. So that's something that we, if we work with the University of Connecticut to get, if that's a very important issue, then that's something they should be testing for.
And the interesting thing is, there was no testing for neonicotinoids, which is the latest pesticide scourge. They weren't even looked at those.
And that's a fairly recent pesticide, correct? That's a newer.
It's recently discovered. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And Mr. Stedman, you have your.
Could I share my screen for a moment, please?
Certainly. I'll stop sharing right now.
Thank you. I'm just going to just briefly, Donald, and thank you. Some of us enjoyed your presentation at the aquaculture, at the gathering of shellfish commissions a few weekends ago in New Haven. But I just wanted to show a couple of photos to you of Norwalk Harbor, if I could. Of course, this is looking south, and this area in here, just this is Veterans Park, and there's the power plant that Mr. Schneerlein mentioned. But this area in here is of particular interest to the Shellfish Commission and the Harbor Commission now.
Okay.
This is a shallow area. I'll show you one other. I'll zoom in on that if I could.
So that said, is that like an area where you would prefer, we can always add additional sample points if you think that that's a very important area. That is something we can do.
That's what I'm getting at. That's what I was going to bring this up to you. This large, very shallow area, largely intertidal, we've been working with the Bureau of Aquaculture, and this is identified as a priority area for research and enhancement as within the state's shellfish restoration plan. So we're intending to apply for a grant. Well, I don't know when we're going to do this, but in the near future, we were going to do it last year, but we weren't prepared yet for planting oysters here, monitoring the growth and the impact on water quality and other factors. So I'm wondering if there's anything you could do with your program for testing in here that would be of benefit to us in planning a shellfish restoration project here.
Okay. Yeah, we can. I know I have one point in there, but I think if that's a priority, we could get multiple points in there.
Well, maybe what we can do is we'll contact you, outside of this meeting, with some more detail about what we're planning to do here.
Okay.
To see whether your project could help us. I'll do one other photo if I have time. This is a winter photo with the light in a funny way. It almost looks like it's frozen, but it's this very shallow area that we're interested in.
Yeah, looks like a lower tide, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But the other thing that would be interesting is to see what your tests might show, your soil tests, because this at one time was a dump, going back to the early 1900s, and then it was subsequently filled with dredge material. So it would be interesting to know what the subsurface conditions are in this location. So thank you. And then one other question, if you don't mind, when you say that this project may have dredging applicability or applicability for planning dredging projects, you're not suggesting that this would replace or the samples that were required by DEEP and the Corps of Engineers for dredging and maintain channels, are you? How would that actually assist with the planning? Because there's fairly stringent requirements for sampling and testing in a channel to be dredged.
No, yeah, that's correct. It would not supersede any of that. It would be like an added information. One of the things that we look at is, the particle size of the subaqueous soils, whether it's sandy or silty, and if it has the presence of sulfides, if there's a high amount of sulfides in them, they become problematic if they're going to be dredged and placed up on the upland somewhere, or disposed of on land versus in the sound, a deep water disposal location. So it's definitely wouldn't supersede any regulations, but basically as a normal soil survey would be, it's basically a general land use planning tool. And just like you would you know, when you're gonna put a septic system on land, you would always do those on-site test bits or that on-site wetland delineation to make sure that you knew specifically what you have to deal with on that site. And
Well,
yes, so that's correct.
I'll stop talking after this, but it brings up another matter. Here's the I-95 bridge over the Norwalk River. So when this project was dredged by the Corps of Engineers going back, more than 10 years now, the material under the bridge and in the vicinity of the bridge was highly contaminated with vehicle pollutants, and that required special disposal and also a significant city cost share. And then subsequent to that, the Harbor and Shellfish Commissions were able to influence the DOT's plans for refurbishing the bridge, which are ongoing now. And a result of that influence, the refurbished bridge will capture most of the highway runoff that previously went directly into the river. But but there are other highway bridges over, you know, the coastal waterways. Might your project have some value in testing the material under those under or nearby those highway bridges, and could be used as an example of the need for all of the bridge work in the future to have stormwater management measures included in them? In other words, could you develop data that would help identify problems with highway runoff in coastal bridges?
I guess, you know, we do have, you know, sites above many of the bridges and, you know, sites below. So if there, you know, there could be comparisons made, I guess, to see if there's differences in some of those, you know, to see if that was an issue. I guess it, you know, kind of depends on what the velocity of the water is and how much tidal flow there is as to how much of it actually winds up, you know, right below the bridge or not. You know, that's a whole issue there, I guess.
You know, we found that the material attributed to the I-95 bridge in Norwalk was both directly under the bridge and then both upstream and downstream.
Okay. And what were you finding in there that was like the major contaminants that?
I have to go back and I can share all that data with you, but it was clear that it was contaminants that are typically and normally associated with vehicle emissions from roadways. I could share that with you, Donald. I have to go back and look. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for our guest speaker? All right, well, thank you. That was extremely informative.
Thank you for the invitation. You know, and we'll probably see some of you this spring down in the Norwalk River area.
Yeah.
That's good.
And you know, by all means, you know, you can contact me through the email or phone or whatever works. So with your questions, or
we'll contact you about that area south of Veterans Park for sure.
okay, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.